the Florida Writer Podcast, a discussion about writing and other things.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Florida Writer Podcast with your host, Alison Nissen. And today I am lucky enough to have with me Vince Warnock. Vince, could you give us a 60-second elevator pitch about who you are and what you write?
Oh man, 60 seconds, no pressure. Okay, so I am Vince Warnock, was previously Chief Marketing Officer at Cigna. I'm a marketing coach, but I write specifically for entrepreneurs. So I write nonfiction marketing books, books around imposter syndrome, books around dealing with a lot of the challenges that we have as entrepreneurs and the stuff that we face regularly. So yeah, I've got one published book at the moment. I've got 3 in the works that are going to be published this year, plus cheekily 2 children's books as well, because I'm a giant kid at heart.
Giant kid at heart. Well, there's some different genres there. So we have our nonfiction and we have our children's. So I'm going to jump in and say, what do you notice the biggest difference with writing a children's book with then writing a book for entrepreneurs? Or is there not much difference?
It's about the same mental and emotional level. Now, it's actually, to be honest, I found the children's books harder to write. And the reason for that is because I want it to be fun and engaging. And I want it to be something that can capture the attention of the child, but also the parent that's reading it to the child. So most of my children's books are based around really tacky dad jokes. So at the end, the reveal, you want the kid to go, oh, that was a cool story. And then the dad or the mum who's reading it just to go, oh, lame. I love it.
All right. Well, let's talk about writing a nonfiction book. How would you suggest someone begins to write a nonfiction book?
Really, really simple. Get a keyboard in front of you, get a Word open or a Google Doc and just start writing. One of the things I discovered, Alison, was there's no real rules around this. I mean, you get told guidelines, you get told rules. Like when I started my first book, everyone kept saying to me, you've got to think about what the end goal is, think about what you want at the end of this. And then you've got to structure your book towards that. And then you have to make sure you do a full draft all the way through, don't edit it at all, and then go back and edit it. But that doesn't work for me. Main reason is because I add a lot of humor to my books, just because I joke around all the time. But what I would notice is, depending on my mood, I'd write a chapter and I reread that chapter and there'll be lots of silly jokes in there. There'll be lots of analogies, lots of kind of personal stories and things coming through. But then the next chapter I write, I was tired, or I was in a bad headspace or whatever else. And it would be very data driven, very factual, so you would be almost like you're reading 2 completely different books. So the thing I learned is throw all the rules out. Don't listen to any of the rules, because you've got to work with what works for you. In fact, for me, it was every day I would write I used to try and do an hour every day, and I got it down to half an hour every day because I've got a lot on. But I know a good friend of mine, I was helping her with her book, and she writes 8 minutes every day. Just 8 minutes. That is it. And in no time had a full book. And she broke every convention writing the book too. It's like, I'm not even going to bother structuring this. I'm literally just going to write a chapter, then find a different topic and write a chapter about that, then a different topic. I'm like, you are mad. But that's the biggest advice I can give. If you want to start writing a book, actually just start writing. It's as simple as that. You've all got a story in you. You've all got something in you that needs to come out. So let it come out. And the best way to do that, put pen to paper, put fingers to keys, however you want to word it, and just start typing.
So let's get back to the idea. So you've written a book, Chasing the Insights. The idea is marketing. It's working with digital marketing.
Yep. Yeah. It's experimentation frameworks for digital marketing, which sounds very riveting. I kid. It sounds very dry. But it was something that I was known for. It was something that I had contributed to the industry. It was something I would use in any organization that I came to. And one of the things I discovered when I took the Chief Marketing Officer role at Cigna was everybody there kept asking me for their time. So all the different Cigna markets would be like, hey, Vince, can we just get an hour of your time every week just so you can teach us this stuff so we can get the results that you're getting? And when you multiply an hour a week by, 40 to 50 different markets, it's like, hang on, this is more than a full-time job. Why don't I just put it all down in a book? And that way you can all buy it from me and I make some money. So that was the kind of the approach I came from, but very quickly then realized that it's all good teaching someone a framework. And in it, I have this thing called the chaser method, which is a way to add experimentation to anything, to any entrepreneurship endeavor you've got, to any marketing, all those kind of things. But it's a way to structure progressive change. And it's all good to have that. But if you don't have the right mindset for it, you're never going to be able to implement it. So I decided it was going to be really important for my book to have 3 elements. One is the framework itself. The second is how do I teach and cultivate the right mindset in the reader so that they can implement this successfully? And then lastly, I'm a huge fan of practical. I want things to be as practical as possible. So I said, right, screw it. We're going to put in practical experiments that you can start right now and hit the ground running once you've read the book. And that was from me. And I also talked to 3 other digital marketing gurus around the world and said, I want your input. So they all gave me 5 experiments each that they would run. So that's kind of how I came up with the topic, but also came up with the kind of structure of the book.
Well, if I was moving on to marketing with that, being your background and your expertise, is there one thing that authors should really do to promote their books?
Yep. Oh my goodness, yes. Biggest thing you can ever do, and you'll hear this a lot, particularly from marketers, is building your tribe. And by that, I mean, it is building a community around you. And there's so many different ways you can do this. And a lot of us think that that means we need to quickly go out and create a Facebook group and then just get all these people to jump in there, and then they'll all support you and they'll all promote you everywhere once you launch your book. No, they won't. Half the time they don't see what you post in there anyway. You've got to get people engaged. You've got to build an audience and make them feel like they're on the journey with you. And some of the things I've done around this, and I've seen others do it very, very successfully, is, for example, my book cover. I was like, right, I was very specific with what I wanted with my designer. I said, like, this is the kind of thing I want. I want it to be really stand out on a thumbnail when it's on Amazon. I want it to be very clear when people see that as they're scrolling through the page, they go, oh, that looks interesting. And oh, that's from Vince Warnock. So I wanted that to be very, very clear. So I worked with them. We came up with some cover designs. And then the thing we did was actually put them out to our audience. Put them out to the audience, say, hey guys, look, I'm toying with these 3 cover ideas. What's your thoughts on this? You know, which one do you prefer? What do you think when you see this? Like, give me your feedback. And everyone felt like they were contributing to it. So they're all like, hey, I'm adding value to this book. I do the same with chapter topics. So, you know, I've got a chapter about X. I'm toying with 3 different titles for that chapter. When you read these titles, what does that mean to you? What do you feel when you do that? And it means, A, you're getting incredibly good feedback from your audience, which is actually going to help you to write a really good book. I do other things as well, like actually tell me what you want in a book. If I'm talking about imposter syndrome, what are the key things that you want me to address within the book? So get them to give you that feedback. So you are now writing the best book possible for your audience. But more than that, your audience are on the journey with you. And I've seen this work on me. I know these tactics. I teach these tactics. I teach a lot of authors how to market their books. And this is one of the biggest things I teach them. And yet I can see it working on me. So Jonah Berger, who I'm a giant fan of, he's one of my favorite authors. He did the exact same thing with his cover design. I'm like, oh, well played, sir. Well played. And I saw his Facebook feed and he's like, hey, which cover do you prefer? And I gave my feedback and everything. And then I realized how excited I was for his book, mainly because I'm a fan of his anyway. But I'm like, I contributed to this. I helped choose the cover design. And by the way, he went with the one I chose. So that made me feel very special, along with probably 2,000 odd other people. But the second that book went out for pre-order, I pre-ordered it because I felt like that book was part of me and I was part of it. So that's the biggest advice I can give any author is make sure you're building that tribe early. And to build that tribe is really simple. Just ask people. Just say, hey, look, I've got a book coming up. I'd love some feedback from all of you. I would love if you could give me some advice on this or give me your input. Come and join me in my Facebook group or come and join me on email, however you want to kind of deliver to the group. And then just get their engagement and get their buy-in. But go out and ask your audience and say, hey, who wants to help me with this?
Do you have any advice to grow a Facebook group?
Yeah, the biggest advice I've got is, first of all, ask. You've always got to ask people to join the group. I use other Facebook groups as a good way of doing that as well. So I always come from the premise of thinking of how you're adding value to people. So for example, in my Facebook group, in fact, I'm doing this at the moment, I'm running a podcasting mini course. So it's a little masterclass in there where it's like, it's a free thing where I'm going to teach you everything you need to launch a podcast. So that's all cool. So that's adding value to my Facebook group. So they're all engaged. They're all talking about it now. Who wants to launch a podcast? What themes are going to be? All these kind of things. But then I can go into other people's Facebook groups that allow you to promote. Really key there. Only the ones that allow you to promote. And on some days I'll say, hey, it's Share Thursday. What are your free offers at the moment? I'll just say, I just really want to help people launch a podcast, and I'm doing a free masterclass on this. So if you're ever curious about this and you're feeling overwhelmed, I can remove that overwhelm to make it really, really easy for you. And then you'll just get an influx of people growing that group. But the key thing is, the more you grow that group, the more you have to keep it engaged. So the more you have to make sure you're asking for participation in there, the more you're profiling the people in the group to make them feel special as well. But then the biggest tip is, once you've got a really engaged, active Facebook community, is get them being your advocates. Ask them to bring their friends in. Say, hey, I'm running a competition. I want you guys, like heaps of people out there need what we have in this group, need this weird little family that we have here where we help each other with marketing, with, putting your book out there, putting your podcast out there, whatever it is. So you guys will all know people like that. Bring them in here and I'll give prizes to everyone that invites somebody in. So that's the easiest way. Get them doing the heavy lifting for you. Don't worry about advertising. Honestly, you're just throwing money down the toilet half the time anyway. But you want to get in front of the right people, the right audience at the right time.
All right. I'm going to jump into imposter syndrome because you mentioned that earlier, that you're working on that. A lot of people are social media shy and they feel like they're an imposter, and even published authors who have a handful of books under their belt still feel a bit like an imposter. They're afraid to reach out because they think people will see right through them. What's your advice on getting over that?
First thing is, don't get over it, embrace it. The fact is you are an imposter, and that's a good thing. So this is usually the shocking answer to that question, but it's true. I mean, think about this for a moment. Right? If you can understand what imposter syndrome is simply your brain trying to protect yourself, right? It's going, okay, Vince or Alison, you guys are outside of your comfort zone right now. You are out there doing something you've never done before, like you're putting a book out there, or you're launching a program, or you're putting a podcast out there, or you're getting visible on social media. You are now vulnerable. You are outside of your comfort zone, and I want to get you back in here where it's safe and where it's comfortable. So it's trying to use fear to get you back in there. But when you understand that it's just your brain trying to keep you safe, and you understand the other fundamental truth, which is outside of your comfort zone is where everything happens. It's basically where the party's at. Outside of your comfort zone is where growth happens, where breakthrough happens, where prosperity happens, where success happens. So if your brain is telling you, hey, you're an imposter, they're going to see right through you, they're going to find out you don't know what you're doing, then actually your brain's just telling you, guess what, Alison? You're exactly where you need to be right now. You're outside of your comfort zone, and that is the exact location that you should be. Yes, you are making this up as you go along. Yes, you are technically an imposter because you've never done this before, but there's nothing wrong with that. We all do that. In fact, well, probably the biggest thing for me, Alison, when I published my first book was I spiraled into imposter syndrome straight after. In fact, because someone said to me, don't do a book launch. No one goes to book launches anymore. I'm like, you amateurs. I'm a marketer. Hold my beer. So I got 100 people together in a room back when we could do face-to-face events. 100 people in a room, did a book launch. It was incredible. It was so supportive. It was an amazing environment. And I knew that everyone's going to want a signed copy of my book because that's what you do when you go to a book launch. So I had to rationalize that in my brain, but I could rationalize it. That was good. But then every time I handed them a signed copy of the book, people would say things like, oh, I can't wait to read this, Vince. Oh, I'm looking forward to reading it. And every time they said that, my stomach knotted. I got sweaty. I felt really uncomfortable. I was like, oh, wow, I'm now completely exposed. So that night, being a high extrovert, leaving an event of 100 or so people who were there to basically honor me, I should have been buzzing. I'm like, this should be amazing. But I was not happy at all. I went to bed, and all I kept having in my head were all these conversations of, oh man, who do you think you are, Vince? Like, what makes you think you've got a right to write a book? What makes you think anyone would want to read this, for starters? And even if they do, they're going to look at it and think, what an amateur. You've never written a book before. So all of this kept playing over my head. So I made the stupidest decision I'd ever made. The next morning, I decided that's it. I don't want to talk about my book anymore. So I just want to basically hide under a rock and go away and not be visible and not do anything. So there were no social posts. In fact, I turned down Forbes, CIO magazine, and Diginomica, who all want to do profiles on the book. And I said, sorry guys, I'm way too busy. I'm chief marketing officer, blah, 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 blah. All of that was excuses. But it wasn't until my mentor called me and said, hey, how's the book sales going? And I told him. He said, oh, that's actually really good. And I said, yeah. And he goes, but I haven't seen any social posts. I haven't seen any PR. I haven't seen anything out there from you, Vince. What's going on? And I said, oh man, I'm just super busy and relying on word of mouth. And he goes, yeah. I'm calling BS on that. And this is a guy who has 8 best-selling books under his belt. And I'm talking New York Times best-selling books. And I was like, okay. And he told me the exact process he goes through every single time he publishes a book. And guess what? It was exactly what I had just gone through. So, you feeling like an imposter is not a bad thing. Everybody goes through this. In fact, the latest stats are like around 78% of people deal with imposter syndrome at some point in their life. And when you're an entrepreneur, and if you're an author, then you're definitely an entrepreneur, then that number is around 99%. And that 1% are just the sociopaths. So we don't really care about them. So in other words, everybody else around you, every other author is probably going through the exact same thing as you right now, which means you have as much right to be there as they do. So retrain your brain. Go, if my brain's telling me you're unsafe, that you're going to be exposed, you are vulnerable right now, you get to go, you know what, brain, you're exactly right. Thank you for prompting me. Thank you for reminding me that this is exactly where I should be. And you know what, brain, I've got this. That's my best advice. Oh, that, and write an impact list. If you've never seen what an impact list is, just write down a list of everybody that is impacted by your book, by the work that you're doing. Write down their name if you've got it, what their challenge was and how you're helping them, and just keep writing this list. Keep adding to that list every time you help someone, every time, even going out and taking your neighbor's trash to the street, like if it's raining and they've got a bad hip and they might slip over. I didn't even realize how much that meant to my neighbor, but put that on your impact list. Start writing down this. It'll connect you with your why. It'll remind you why you're doing what you're doing. But more than that, when you look at that list, it'll take your eyes off of your own insecurities. It'll fixate on something that's further out. In other words, you're looking in the distance rather than in the direct vicinity, which means that you'll remove your focus from those things like imposter syndrome. But it'll also make you realize that if you don't write that book, if you don't put that book out there, if you don't do this, you are going to deny somebody the right to success or breakthrough or whatever else you're helping them with. And that makes it not about you, about somebody else, which makes it a lot easier to deal with because that's how our brains are wired.
Oh, fantastic information. Do you recommend taking parts of a chapter or chapter titles and putting those in a blog or in a Facebook post or a LinkedIn post or anything to that sort?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's kind of a weird fear that we have that if we put our stuff out there for free, for example, like we think, oh my goodness, like, if I take a chapter of my book and put it out there, then no one's going to read my book anymore. They're not going to buy it because they've already got some of it for free. But what we don't realize is there's a whole element of reciprocity that happens here, where the more value you add to someone, the more they want to deal with you anyway. And if you're putting stuff out there and saying, hey, I really think this would help you, you don't even need to necessarily put it on a blog. I've done it before where I've literally just gone and messaged someone and said, hey, I saw you posted about this. I've got a book I've written at the moment, or I'm writing at the moment. I've just written a chapter. I think it would really help you. Would you like me to send it to you? And they always come back, yes, please. And you send it to them. Next thing you know, by the way, they're buying your book, but they're also contacting you going, hey, Vince, are you a marketing coach? I need your help. And I'm like, well, hold my beer. I've got this. So yeah, look, definitely add value to people.
Win, win, win. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears just a little bit. At one point you told me that you wanted to write a fiction book.
Oh, yes. Oh, now I'm uncomfortable, Alison.
Now
yes, I do.
Now imposter syndrome is putting its arms around you. It's giving you a big hug, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Not just fiction, science fiction. I'm a huge geek. For anyone that can see my office, it's riddled with Star Wars and Marvel and all the stuff I grew up with that I love so much. But I love the element of storytelling. I love, because I use this in nonfiction books where I tell stories in there. I tell my own experiences, things that have happened to me, but to bring something larger to life, something that's science fiction based. Oh my goodness, that is my dream. I really want to win a Nebula Prize or something like that. And by the way, this is from someone who's never written a single piece of fiction before. But I'm gunning for one of the big prizes. I want to write a novella. I've already got the idea behind what I want to write, but I realized the idea may be clever, and it is, and I'm quite pleased with the idea. And it's got a nice little twist in it and everything, which will be really, really cool for the reader. And you won't see it coming, but it's one of those things where you're like, oh, okay, that played out. That was nice. However, I realized that's the easy part. Actually bringing that to life in a way, in a writing style that's going to connect with the reader is really, really difficult. So yeah, it will happen one day, Alison. And to be fair, I say I'm not writing it at the moment because I'm so busy, but in reality, that's just an excuse because I could probably start putting pen to paper today.
Would you use your same name or would you use a pen name?
Same name. Yeah. I honestly, if you're going to do something, own it. Like my children's books, they're in my name as well. Your personal brand is really important. Don't shy away from that, and don't let the fear of, like, for example, I could get really fearful that if I put a children's book out there, people will go, hey, you're like one of the top 50 marketers in the world, Vince. What are you doing writing a children's book? And I'll be like, well, so I want to own that. I don't want to shy away from that. I don't care if people judge me on that, because it's my personal brand. And I believe it brings to life who I am. I love my kids to bits. All of my kids' books really have come from stories that we made up during their childhood, or one of them that's I can't wait to get out there is literally about trying to tell my son about Santa Claus, and he's way too intelligent. Like, his IQ is off the charts. And he just looked at me and went, nah, that's a stretch, Dad. And I went, I turned to my wife and said, there's no way he's ever going to buy into this. And hopefully no kids are listening to this podcast. Because I turned around and said, look, well, Santa Claus ain't real. It's just something that parents make up, a story that parents make up to make their kids behave. And he goes, well, Dad, if you're going to make up a story, at least make it interesting and put ninjas in it. So we started writing this story together. We didn't intend for it to be a book. We wrote this story together about the Christmas ninja. And it's about this ninja that follows the wise men down to Bethlehem, and little baby Jesus there. And they've got to protect him from Santa and his evil ninja elf clan. And there's this massive battle that ensues and all this stuff. And then finally, Santa is defeated and he's banished to the North Pole. And to make amends, every year he has to deliver toys to all the kids. So now this ninja's like achieved his goal. And he's like, what do I do now? So now he wanders the land and he looks for people that are deemed worthy of the traits of a ninja. So that is honor, respect, self-sacrifice, putting others above you. The traits that we actually think are far more important than just behaving and being good so that you get some prizes or get some toys. So that was what we installed in the kids, and we made this story up. And that started our Christmas tradition, which is every year the kids get together with us. They're older now. My daughter's 24, my son's 18, but they come back together with us and they go, right, okay, we're going to pick a person each that we deem worthy of these traits. Somebody who we've seen has just so self-sacrificially looked after other people, or has honored other people, respected other people. And we are going to deliver a stealthful present for them on Christmas morning. So we open one present each, then we jump in the car. We used to wear black suits, but it's summer here in New Zealand, so it's way too hot to do that. And we just about overheated. And you would go and you would deliver this anonymous present to this household, and you can't get seen. That's the key. You're not allowed to be seen. So you drop it off, and on it, it says, you've been deemed worthy of the Christmas ninja for the traits of blah, blah, blah. And then we have the Christmas ninja story in there. So we started this tradition. We've been doing this for years and years and years. There are people that immediately knew it was us because they're like, duh. There are some people who've never figured out it was us. But about 3 years ago, somebody came to me after Christmas. I said, how was your Christmas? They said, oh, it's fantastic. It was crazy though. We got this gift from the Christmas ninja. And I kind of chuckled and then thought, wait, they weren't on my list. We didn't deliver it to them, which means somebody's picked up the tradition, because as part of it, when you're being deemed worthy, you are now a Christmas ninja. And they have now taken that on as their tradition. So that's when we went, right, written the book. In fact, we're finishing off the artwork now. It'll be published this year. And the hope is that we just install a different view, a different way for people to go, hey, with the kids, it's not about being good. It's not about just doing the chores or not misbehaving. It's actually about more than that. It's about being a really cool human being. So that's what we want to install in people, and trying to inspire them a little bit to think a little bit better than just doing your chores and not yelling at your parents.
Vince Warnock, that is an amazing tradition. I am definitely looking forward to reading that book. But are you ready to switch to our rapid fire questions as soon as you tell us how people can get in touch with you?
Oh, I'm hanging out for the rapid fire questions. I make it real easy for you to get in touch with me. Just go to chasingtheinsights.com. It's the home of my podcast, which is for entrepreneurs. It's the home of my books. It's the home. You'll see links everywhere on social to all my social channels to where you can connect with me. Just reach out and connect with me. Unless you're a spammer, I connect with everybody. Just don't spam me. That's terrible. But if you want to connect with me, do so. If you need any help with marketing, I'm always keen to jump on a free call with you. You'll see on the website, there's ways you can do that. So yeah, chasingtheinsights.com, super easy.
All right. First question. If animals could talk, which would be the rudest?
The rudest? If animals could talk, it'd be my cat. Because seriously, the look he gives me sometimes in the morning, he's like, dude, seriously, what the hell? Feed me. Come on, man. Yeah.
Yes, the ninja cat.
Yeah.
Which activities make you lose track of time?
Just about every activity. I suffer from ADHD. I suffer from severe squirrel or shiny object syndrome. So I actually probably my number one would be watching anything Star Wars or Marvel related on TV or at the movies. I get so absorbed into the stories. I get absorbed. I'm rewatching all the Clone Wars series at the moment with my son, and we just get so absorbed in it. We realize we've watched like 4 episodes in a row, and then we're like, oh, that's right. I'm supposed to be doing some work.
And if you could put any message on a billboard, what would it say?
Oh my goodness. It would say, you've got this. You're better than you think you are. Genuinely, I've learned so many times in my life from the people that have been there for me. When I haven't believed in myself, when I have doubted myself, when I've thought I can't amount to anything. And it was people coming alongside me that gave me hope, that gave me vision, and that made me realize that we are all wonderful but completely flawed human beings. And that's A-okay. So yeah, I just want people to know you're stronger than you think you are, you're better than you think you are, and you've got this.
Vince Warnock, thank you so much for stopping by.
It is an absolute pleasure, Alison. Thank you so much for having me. Seriously, when you said, hey, come on the show, I'm like, oh my goodness, yes, seriously, I wouldn't miss this. Just selfishly, just the chance to catch up with you and have a chat is always high on my agenda. But if we can do it and benefit other people from it, then hey, let's do it.
Absolutely, 100%. I am on board. You all have been listening to another edition of the Florida Writer Podcast with your host, Alison Nissen. Alison out. Boom. That's it.
I love your sign off. Alison out. Boof.
Vince Warnock is an award-winning marketer, author, marketing strategist, and a sought-after public speaker. Vince is a Fearless 50 recipient, a program which recognizes the top 50 marketers in the world who are driving bold, fearless marketing and digital transformations. For more information about Vince, visit his website at chasingtheinsights.com. Learn, network, and grow at the 20th Annual Florida Writers Conference, October 14th through 17th, 2021. The Florida Writers Youth Conference, October 16th, 2021. Make your mark with the Florida Writers Association. Visit us at floridawriters.org for more information. Until next time.